Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this young lady back. She, of course, four-term Congresswoman, 2020 presidential candidate, veteran with 3 deployments overseas, war zones like the Middle East, like Africa. Brand new book out you can see behind her, For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. It, of course, is Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi, how are you? Good to see you.
My friend Joe, it's great to see you again.
It's just a pleasure to have you. I talked about this with you before, and you were really nice about getting into it. Your demeanor is not off-putting, but it's tension relieving, and then you smack them upside the head. And here's what I mean. I will never forget you on the. It's true. In the primary debates, I don't think the Democrat Party understood who they had on their hands. I really don't, because you present with this great smile, and your tone of voice is very direct and very soothing, and then you just nail them with facts. Do you think they didn't realize who they had? Because I don't think they would have let you on stage otherwise.
I think that's a fair assessment. They would have had a hard time keeping me off that stage.
Right.
They certainly started to try pretty hard to keep me off that stage after the first few debates. If you remember, they kept on changing the criteria.
Yeah, suddenly you weren't allowed to be on again. What happened?
Exactly. So it was interesting to see that. And I was also surprised to see how much they frankly underestimated I guess the impact of the message that I was delivering.
I don't think they knew your message. I don't think they knew your message. I think that they ignored you as somebody else to fill a space. And then that night, as you know, the most Googled person on the planet.
Exactly.
And you actually handed Kamala Harris her experience. You said, hey, here's what you've done. Now back it up. As she was telling her future boss that he was a racist. Tulsi, if we go back to that first debate, the whole thing was really crazy. You could do a movie about that debate.
Yeah, it was wild. I made the most. I went actually back and looked recently at how much time they gave me in that very first debate. And I think it was something like 6 minutes and 42 seconds.
That's all it was?
Of total talk time throughout that entire 2-hour long debate.
Wow.
But boy,
and you made that much impact.
I did my best to make the most of every one of those seconds. And the other debates weren't very different. I came in always optimistic and hopeful that maybe this time, because there were other candidates who complained about having such a limited amount of time. The moderators were clearly featuring certain candidates and not others. And so I remember going to that second debate. There were news stories written about this. Like, okay, cool. Somebody's calling them out. And so maybe then this one will be different. And I actually remember I'm there right now at the debate stage. Every question that was asked, I was kind of leaning in. I was like, this is it. Yeah. They're going to call on me for this one. Right. Ready to go. And then, it unfortunately was exactly the same. I think on average, it was somewhere between 5 or 7 minutes at every debate that I participated in. But I'm pretty sure that second debate, I was also the most searched candidate online at the end of the debate as well.
100%, because you were somebody who wasn't polarizing. You were somebody who was saying things that a guy like me, a conservative guy, would go, well, wait a second, I'm not supposed to agree with this lady. So It was interesting because you did grab my attention, my wife's attention, our kids. Everybody was going, who's this lady? Now, we knew who you were, obviously, but you, being from Hawaii, and I live in Texas, we weren't that into your daily, thought process. But what we found out was they need to shut her up. If they don't, she's going to make the party look like it used to look. Because I believe that blue dog, or some would say yellow dog, Democrats would be conservative today. So I think that you're probably a conservative, moderate person who thought that the Democrat Party still had an opening for you. It didn't.
Which is fascinating, when people are looking, and I write about this a lot in my book, where I'm not just letting people know why I left the Democratic Party, but I'm telling them directly in this title, For Love of Country, leave the Democrat Party behind.
Right.
Because I think there are so many people in this country, and the timing for this book, I think, is really important as we head into this critical election year. There's a lot of folks out there who I hear from, a lot who I don't hear from, who are frustrated Democrats, people who are thinking of leaving the Democratic Party, or who have already left but not really sure what they should do in this next election. There's a lot that I have been through that many other Americans have been through or are going through themselves, and who will play a very critical role in deciding the outcome of this election. As you know very well, it's always the very small margins that decide who becomes our next president and commander in chief. And so the message I delivered on those debate stages that we're talking about, Joe, the message I'm delivering now in this book and everywhere I go to anyone who will listen, is about how we have to come together around our fundamental principles and freedoms, the things that make us uniquely who we are as Americans in this country, and recognize that those are the very things that are under attack right now by the Democrat elite, and going through very detailed examples of exactly how they are doing that and the proof points. This isn't just some empty rhetoric, and the responsibility that we have as Americans to ensure that we save our country, because nothing less than that is what's at stake.
Book.tulsigabbard.com. Go there and get the book right now. Actually, you could pre-order it. It's available next month.
You can pre-order it on Amazon right now.
Love it. For love of country, leave the Democrat Party behind. Tulsi, did the Democrat Party, well, I know it's a dumb question. Democrat Party did change. But did you also have to change? Did you change a bit, whereas you weren't as liberal or far left as you thought you were, and you realized that that party probably hasn't been your party for a long time?
Yeah, Joe, I've always been an independent-minded person for as long as I've been involved with politics, but just generally in life. I think it's important for us to be able to witness what's going on around us, learn from different perspectives, learn from our own experience. So, of course, there have been some things that I've seen my own eyes opened on over the years and changed my position accordingly. But I will tell you, by and large, the Democratic Party of today is completely unrecognizable from the party that I joined, unrecognizable even the party of Bill Clinton or Barack Obama. The party that exists today is under control of this elite cabal of woke warmongers. And frankly, the Republican Party has also shifted. And this is often talked about publicly in the media. And I think it's in the process of shifting more, where the Democrat Party now is one that shuts down free speech, that discourages any kind of dissent or challenging of the positions and the narrative that the Democrat elite have chosen to take on as their cause. Whereas the Republican Party, which some people don't like, is pretty robust with debate and different ideas and people challenging the warmongers within their own party and in the Biden-Harris administration,
right.
Which to me, we should encourage that. We should encourage that kind of discussion, debate, even disagreement if it comes to that, because we're better and stronger as a country when we do that.
Pre-order it right now on Amazon. It's for love of country. Leave the Democrat Party behind. It's Tulsi Gabbard. Go to book.tulsigabbard.com. Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army Reserves. So let's talk about war a little bit. Actually, before I do, let me just ask you a question so we can clear this up. People ask me this every time. When you talk to Tulsi Gabbard again, ask her, is she a Republican? Tulsi, are you a Republican? Are you a conservative?
I'm an independent.
Okay, so
I'm an independent. I'm an independent who loves this country and will always put our country first. Period.
Okay, so you don't have a party designation anymore. Independent thinker, independent everything.
Not at the moment.
Okay, because you're on the short list. You know this. Are you going to be the vice? I asked Ben Carson this, and Dr. Carson laughed at when I did. Are you going to be the vice president? Would you be open to that?
I didn't hear Ben Carson's response, but my guess is it may be similar. I really like him. He's a great guy. I've had a chance to spend some time with him and his wife.
Yeah.
I want to serve our country in the best way that I can and where I can make the most impact. So I'm not chasing a job or a title or anything like that. I'm chasing the opportunity to be able to serve my country.
His answer almost exactly was that, but he added a little of this. Our top priority needs to be get Donald Trump back in office. And then he laughed. And when he laughs, you just move on because Ben Carson's smarter than I'll ever be. And I wasn't gonna press him on that. But we've been friends a long time. I see him like you. You just love the country. You love the country, and you don't love the division that's being fomented by the left. And as they do it, and maybe you've got a comment on this, as they try to divide you and me because you're a woman and I'm a man, and you're this ethnicity and I'm that ethnicity. As they want to divide us on whatever they possibly can, they look in the camera and they say, or it's a threat to democracy. What?
Yes.
It's so. How do you deal with that? Because there are some people that are busier and they're not into politics like you and I, and they hear that Trump or Gabbard or Pags, they're a threat to democracy, and they believe it.
Oh, here's a couple of points I want to make on that. They say they throw around some of these terms very carelessly. Like you said, for example, it's a threat to democracy. If you disagree with their position, you are a threat to democracy. If you criticize the Biden-Harris administration's policies, you're a threat to democracy. If you support Donald Trump, you're a threat to democracy. If you support school choice, according to head of the teachers union, you are a threat to democracy and freedom. So, when they throw these accusations out, just like they throw out accusations of being a Putin puppet or a Russian asset, they do it so much that it becomes meaningless. Really, it becomes meaningless. And this is why in my book and in my speeches and every opportunity I get, I go into detailed examples of how the Democrat elite truly are a threat to our freedom, our republic, and our democracy.
Right.
These aren't empty words that I use lightly. It's something I take very, very seriously, simply because I do love our country. I'll give you an example of an example I heard today. I try to listen to a lot of different news sources, whether they are ones that I like or don't like or agree with or disagree with, because I want to hear what people are talking about in the country,
Smart.
and I want to hear what other people are listening to who may disagree with me and come and challenge my position, so I can better understand where they may be coming from or where they're getting their information from. So, at the gym this morning, I was listening to one of the top podcasts that the New York Times puts out. It's called The Daily. And every day, Monday through Friday, I think, and even Sunday, they put out a new podcast tackling an issue of the news of the day or a bigger issue or something like that. But this particular one had to do with President Biden and President Trump visiting the border on the same day, and the difference in their approach. And I thought it was very telling that they framed President Biden as someone who was actually trying to work in a bipartisan way to secure our border by passing this legislation. And they referred to Trump's remarks and his approach to border security as a divisive one, that Trump is choosing the path of anger and divisiveness and blame and the blame game. And there was no description behind it of how his remarks of saying the Biden-Harris administration has failed us with their open border policy over the last 3+ years, and why it is so concerning to our country, our national security, and the safety and security of our communities, rightly pointing to Miss Riley in Georgia, who was just murdered by someone who was apprehended when he crossed into our country illegally, who was arrested in New York City and let go on both accounts, and then was let free to be able to go and take this beautiful young woman's life. But you hear these words, and they are buzzwords that are put out. And unfortunately, they work with a lot of people who, as you pointed out, don't have time to go and actually listen to Biden's remarks, listen to Trump's remarks. I heard the same thing around Trump's remarks at CPAC. I saw the news coverage first before I listened to the speech.
Right.
And the news coverage made it sound like there was some new dictator that had come from a tyrannical government in another country and coming to take over America. And then I actually listened to his remarks, and I was like, oh my gosh, the two have no resemblance to the other at all. And so what I encourage people to do, Joe, is don't take anything at face value. Don't take what I say at face value. Take in information, think for yourself, do your own research and do your own reading, even if it's just a little bit, and you will come to realize that oftentimes, especially from the propaganda media and the Democrat elite, it is not what they are claiming it to be.
You've got to be skeptical. And I tell people who watch and listen to my program, okay, don't believe me. I'm going to tell you the truth. I source all of it, but go and check me out. And if I don't check out, don't listen to me anymore. Make sure you tell people not to. If I do check out, make sure you do. Don't listen to Tulsi either, unless she is proven to have a track record of telling you the truth, which you do. Now, you know that I'm sitting in Texas. By the way, get this book, pre-order it now. For love of country, leave the Democrat Party behind. It's Tulsi Gabbard. I'm in Texas, where I'm based. We saw Trump and Biden. Now, here's the real story. Biden yesterday made it about climate change, didn't know what he was going to say, lost his place in the teleprompter, and Mayorkas attacked the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, in any words that he gave. Also, you probably don't know this, because I've got people in the Border Patrol, they were not allowed to be anywhere near Joe Biden yesterday. The frontline men and women on the Border Patrol doing the job weren't allowed to be near him. Trump is standing next to the razor wire waving at illegal aliens trying to come in. So it was such a different place. Brownsville, there's no problem. That's where Biden went. Eagle Pass is where the problem is. That's where Trump went. So as Biden went there for a photo op, just like they cleaned it up a year ago in El Paso, Trump went with his sleeves rolled up again for about the 30th time. He keeps going to actually show what's going on. But the New York Times will have you and I believe, and those watching and listening believe, Trump said poisoning our blood. You can't do that. He's speaking like Hitler. When in essence he's saying Venezuela is sending crime gangs to the United States. China is sending military-age people, and Northern Africa is doing the same thing across our border. So yes, that's going to be a problem. Maybe you use different verbiage, maybe you use a different word, but what Trump is saying is true. They're hiding it. What Biden is saying is completely backward. All he has to do is undo the executive actions to fix this, but they're siding with him. You're so right about that. Listen, I'm pretty good at what I do. You're very good at what you do. We could not make Biden look like the good guy here. I just couldn't
No.
do it because he broke it.
Yeah, and because we know that the American people aren't stupid.
Yes.
And this is the thing is the Biden-Harris administration, they are insulting the intelligence of the American people by somehow trying to think that they can lie their way into having us believe that now all of a sudden in the 11th hour, oh, by the way, there's a really important election just a few months away. Now they are the ones who are going to solve this massive
And the
border
Republicans are stopping
crisis.
it. Republicans are the
Correct.
problem.
Correct. And here's something that a friend of mine told me who's not political at all, and frankly, who didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2020. He said, when you look back now, where we sit today, to both 2016 especially, but even 2020, what Donald Trump was warning the American people about with open borders and the illegal immigration crisis, he seems now, looking back, to be ahead of his time, that he was a guy who identified the problem a whole lot earlier than other folks and beat the drum, warning the American people about that threat and what it could cost us, even in the face of great criticism by those who are truly seeking to divide us. So the American people aren't stupid.
Right.
And our memories are not that short as to see, like, now Joe Biden saying, oh, well, maybe I'll just do, some executive orders. Well, bro, if you claim to care about the border as much as you do now, then perhaps you should have taken immediate action, as you said you could have now,
Yeah.
years ago.
Well, he took immediate action to break it. I mean, he actually undid everything
Yeah,
that was working. It's Tulsi Gabbard, so well said. And I love talking to people who aren't political because they're not in it like we are.
that's
And
right.
if they get it right, then we know that we're actually making inroads. It's book.tulsigabbard.com. Get the book for love of country. Leave the Democrat Party behind. Last question. You're a military mind. You are anti us funding every war around the world. What do we do about Ukraine? Because we're in it. We're literally fighting with our money against Russia when there could have been two peace deals if you believe Putin. I don't know if he told the truth or not, but Minsk could have happened. Istanbul could have happened. All this death could have stopped a long time ago. If you had the button, Tulsi, how do you stop it? What do you do about this?
Immediately call for a meeting with the stakeholders and negotiate a peace deal, period. This isn't about whether or not you believe Putin. We've had the former prime minister of Israel. We've had leaders from Turkey. We've had many leaders from different countries who have been in a position, who have been actively trying to broker a deal, tell the truth, which is that it has been the Biden administration that has blocked each of those attempts at a peaceful negotiation. So it makes me so mad, Joe. It makes me so mad every time I hear these people express their crocodile tears and fake sympathy for the Ukrainian people, and we're in it with them until the end. It's total BS. Thousands of people have lost their lives. Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people have lost, innocent people have lost their lives because of this war and the fact that leaders who could have impacted this war could not have gone on as long as it had without American taxpayer dollars.
100%.
And the Biden-Harris administration and war hawks, Democrats and Republicans in Congress, continuing to push this funding. So I don't believe them for a second that they care about Ukrainian lives, because they were in a position to prevent this killing and come up with a peaceful negotiated outcome that every expert now is saying is the only way this war ends. People like you and I saw from the beginning that was the only way this thing was going to end or could
100%.
have been prevented. And now we're in almost 2 years, over $100 billion of American taxpayer dollars, and who knows how many lives have been unnecessarily sacrificed for what? To feed the military-industrial complex and to further these warmongers' aims of whether it's regime change of Putin or just constantly being in a state of war so that they can use that power to influence and impact other things. I don't care what their excuses or what their real motives are. They are the reason why this war has continued on as long as it has, and why the Ukrainian people still have no peace.
Yeah. I could not have said it better myself. That was extremely well said and very direct, and I appreciate that. We can get into Boris Johnson wanting $1 million from Tucker Carlson just to talk about it later next time. Next time if you want. I mean, that tells me a lot about him walking away from the actual deal that could have been done. It's Tulsi Gabbard. Pre-order this book right now over on Amazon. It's available next month, called For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. And I hope that you play a huge role in what could be another Trump administration. I think we need you in there, to be honest with you, Tulsi. Thanks for making the time today.
Thank you, Joe. Great seeing you. Talk to you soon.
Good to see you. We're back after this. Stay right here.